Have you ever had a client say she absolutely loves a nail color, and then the moment you finish the entire set, she suddenly decides she doesn't like it anymore? Well, that actually happened to me. And while you're watching this nail transformation, I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. And just quickly before we start, the client you see in this video is a note the client from the story. These nails are just a transformation I filmed. The story happened with someone completely different. So this client came in for a simple appointment, nothing complicated, just a fresh manicure with gel polish. We started the appointment like normal. I prepped the nails, pushed the cuticles, shaped everything nicely. Everything was going smoothly. Then came the moment that sometimes takes the longest in a nail appointment, choosing the color. I brought out my color collection and started looking through the options. First, she picked up a nude shade. Then she said maybe something pink. Then maybe something darker. Then maybe softer. If you're a nail tech, you probably know exactly what I mean. Sometimes choosing the color takes longer than actually doing the nails. Eventually, she found a color she really liked. It was a soft pink shade, very elegant and very wearable. But because I've been doing nails for a long time, I always like to double check before a color on every single nail. So I told her, let's try it on one nail first, just so you can see how it looks. I applied the color on her pinky finger and cured it in the lamp. When she looked at it, she immediately smiled. She said, That's beautiful. I love it. So I asked again, just to be sure. Are you completely sure? 'Cause once we do all the nails, it takes more time if we want to change it. And she said, yes, I'm sure. I really love this color. So I started applying the color to the rest of the nails. First coat. Into the lamp. Second coat. Into the lamp again. Everything looked perfect. The color was even, shiny, and exactly like the sample she chose. I applied the top coat. Cured it again. Finished everything with cuticle oil. You know that satisfying moment when the nails are completely finished and everything looks glossy and fresh. So I turned her hands towards her and said, okay, we're all done. She looked at her nails. She moved her fingers a little to see them in the light. And then suddenly, she said something that made me pause. She said, And usually when a client says like that, it's not a good sign. Then she looked at me and said, I actually don't know if I like the color that much anymore. For a second, I thought she was joking. Because remember, she chose the color. We tested it on one nail. She loved it. But now that it was on all 10 nails, suddenly she wasn't sure anymore. She said, different on one nail. And honestly, sometimes that actually happens. When you see a color on just one nail, it can look subtle, but on all 10 nails, it suddenly feels stronger. Then she asked the question, is it possible to change the color? Now, technically, it is possible, but it means removing the top coat, filing the color down, and doing the entire color process again. So I explained that it would take some extra time. Luckily, she was very understanding. She even said she felt a little bad asking, but she said she really wanted to love her nails. And honestly, that's also what I want for my clients. So I said, let's change it. We removed the color. Then we started looking at the color collection again. And this time I said, let's test the new color on 2 nails first, just to be absolutely sure. She picked another shade, a little softer and slightly more neutral. We tested it. And this time she immediately said, yes, this is the one. So, applied the color again on all the nails. First coat. Second coat. Top coat. Everything perfectly. And when we finished the second time, she looked at her hands and smiled. She said, okay, now I really love them. And honestly, the final result looked beautiful. She left happy, and in the end, that's the most important thing. But that moment reminded me of something in this job. Sometimes a client really thinks she loves a color until she sees it on all 10 nails. And that's exactly why I often test a color first. Because, trust me, it saves a lot of time. So now I'm curious. If you're a nail tech watching this, Has a client ever changed their mind about a color after you already finished the nails? Let me know in the comments because I'm pretty sure this has happened to many nail techs. So after we talked about the extra time and the small additional cost, she completely understood. She actually apologized and said she didn't want to cause extra work. I told her not to worry too much about it, because situations like this do happen sometimes. Then, looking at the colors again. This time, she was much more careful. Instead of quickly picking one shade, she really took her time comparing different colors. She held them next to her nails, looked at them in the light, and even asked me what I thought would look best on her skin tone. Eventually, we found another color. Was still in the same pink family, but slightly softer and a little more neutral. Before applying it to all the nails, I suggested something. I said, let's test it on 2 nails first, just to make sure you really like it. So I applied the color to 2 nails and cured them in the lamp. When she looked at them this time, you could immediately see the difference in her reaction. She smiled right away and said, yes, this one feels much better. So we go with that shade. I removed the rest of the previous color and started applying the new one. Coat. The lamp. Second coat. To the lamp again. And while I was working, we actually started laughing about the whole situation. She told me that she once bought a sweater she loved in the store, but when she got home, she suddenly didn't like it anymore. And honestly, I think everyone has had a moment like that. Sometimes something looks great in the moment, but when you see it differently later, your opinion changes. After the second coat was cured, I applied the top coat again and finished everything. When she looked at her hands this time, she was smiling from ear to ear. She said, okay, now I'm 100% sure. I really love them. And I have to admit, the final color suited her perfectly. It looked softer and more natural on her hands, and you could tell she felt much more confident about it. When she left the salon, she even said something funny. She said, next time I promise I'll think a little longer before choosing the color. And laughed. Because honestly, moments like this are just part of working with clients. And even though it took a little extra time that day, in the end, the most important thing is that the client leaves happy. And honestly, moments like that really remind you that working as a nail tech is not just about doing nails. It's also about communication, patience, and making sure your clients feel happy with the final result. Because at the end of the day, clients are going to look at their nails every single day. So if they leave the salon and they don't love them, that's not a great feeling for anyone. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more nail transformations and story times like this.